some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah, so there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to, yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like, the government clearly prints money, it does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, we need to make a Bitcoin update because Bitcoin perfectly bounced off of the 21 exponential, and you could see this candle right here had a lot of buying to the upside. If we come over and have a look here, we did get a nice bounce off of this previous resistance that we had of this upward sloping trend, and it did act as a bit of a bear trap. Now, we are back into this sort of sideways trading zone, but at the same time, we are still putting in lower lows. So we really need to talk about what is going on with Bitcoin, because what's interesting is, again, as we had been anticipating this dip, we still maintained overall bullish structure. In fact, just talking about what the Bitcoin whales have done, if I told you the amount of Bitcoin that they have been buying over this past week, you would not believe me. But if you just look at the chart, I think you can see that they are buying exponentially right here, right? So what I want to talk about today is the fact that Bitcoin is about to enter what we could kind of refer to as, well, I guess you could say the hot phase, okay? And a lot of people are not really ready for what comes next for Bitcoin. So we're also about to do something right now with Bitcoin that we've only really seen happen 2 times so far in this cycle. And well, I'm gonna kind of save that for the end of the video, but it seems like every time Bitcoin does this, it gets even more and more aggressive with each move. So there's a lot of people that are thinking that maybe the market was over, or again, the bears were coming out calling for $30,000 Bitcoin, etc. But I think by the end of this video, you're going to have a very different perspective. I have some hilarious clips I have to play for you from some economists. And when you realize what these people are doing, or at least their lack of understanding of what they're doing, it literally makes the Bitcoin narrative even that much stronger. And if you're not bullish, or if you're semi-bullish, by the end of this video, if you're not totally bullish on Bitcoin, well then I don't know what to tell you. So we're going to talk about all this today. If that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you are not subscribed, definitely consider it, guys. And don't forget, over on Levex, they are still doing 10% cash back on all trades, and they will match a free long or short position up to $5,000 in free trading money. Literally deposit, trade, and they will match that, guys. And you can see also over on Blowfin, they are doing a $3,500 deposit bonus. So if you are looking to trade, again, get subscribed, watch the analysis, because we've been pretty much spot on, guys. And if you are trading these markets, especially if you've been using also, in combination with meta signals, there's almost no reason why you shouldn't be killing it, even in these short-term downtrends with these uptrends. So we'll get into the analysis. I'm going to push the analysis to the end of the video today, simply because it seems to just lose a lot of people in the beginning. They don't care about the charts, even though the charts have been completely accurate. So where will we begin? Well, let's start with something that just happened for the first time. Grayscale Bitcoin ETF has been on a non-stop weekly outflow ever since it launched. And as of May 3rd, we finally saw, for the first time ever, a GBTC positive inflow. Now, could this just be a fluke? I mean, it just happened for the first time, who knows? But this could be signs that the tide is ready to turn, right? And I believe that there is a lot of whale manipulation trying to catch people off sides, trying to get them to doubt their positions, to sell their Bitcoins, maybe hop into some of these meme coins, which is fine. Meme coins have been doing pretty well. I'm not against them. But I really think at the end of the day, the fundamentals for Bitcoin are getting incredibly stronger as the days go by. And like Vivek for real pointed out, let's just see what's going on. So these are the hot phases that he talks about, right? Except in all these previous hot phases, sort of like, leading into and after the halving, we've only ever had retail, except this time we have public companies like Block, 43 billion, MicroStrategy, 20 billion. We have all these different ETFs like BlackRock, Fidelity, private companies like Tether, 50 billion, nation states like El Salvador. They're all buying millions to billions worth of Bitcoin every month. Are you paying attention? Oh, and the whale that's been buying, by the way, the Mr. 100 or whatever they call him, he just bought more this week as well. So obviously there is some serious accumulation, but everyone's panicking and they're not realizing what's actually happening in the background. So I wanted to start with this. This is an amazing video by Texas A&M professor Karak Ray. Now, he basically just broke down Bitcoin price into the simplest possible reason ever. Forget all the technology, forget this, censorship resistance and all that. If you just want to look at Bitcoin from simply a financial perspective as just an instrument, even if it's an instrument of speculation. Listen to this clip, and he breaks it down in such a way that you would have to be an absolute fool. It would be irresponsible to not be allocating to Bitcoin and to not be realizing how much these dips are truly for buying.
One of the geniuses of Bitcoin's design is that it really is digital scarcity for the first time. And so what I tried to do is I looked at the returns from holding Bitcoin at, say, a 5-year horizon. And I asked, well, what would be that return if you bought it at the highest possible price and sold it at the lowest possible price? And so that would be your lower bound of your payoff. That would be the worst you could do. And I looked at that for all possible horizons. And this is what it looks like. Okay? So what do we see? We see after about 3.25, 3.3 years, you will not lose money. After about 3.45 years, you will beat the market. After 3.5 years, you will beat Warren Buffett. And then beyond that, everything else is icing on the cake. Now, the past does not predict the future, right? And obviously, we don't know the future. But I'm an empirical economist. I'm a social scientist. We have to look at the facts. And so to me, this is the top 1,000 reasons to hold Bitcoin. If you forget everything else I say, at least remember this picture. And so this is, I think, the first time in the history of humankind where we see this kind of the value of scarcity illustrated in such a novel way.
And no one is really quite understanding this supply shock just yet because they want it to happen quick, right? The halving happens. Where's the 100K Bitcoin? It takes time, the same way that what the Fed does when they raise or rates or they cut them, whatever, that affects. But it takes 3, 6, sometimes 8 months to see that. The same thing is happening with the halving. But look at this inverse relationship. As the exchange reserves continue to dwindle, this blue line right here, we are seeing price go in the other direction, right? And don't forget that we have, well, recently the ETF inflows obviously have been a little bit lower, but they're still outpacing the production that is available. So if this does dry up, theoretically, okay, it probably never will dry up. Someone will always be selling at some price. But realistically, this is where you're going to get that supply shock. And even Clem Chambers, who, you got to give it to him, he has a pretty good track record of being correct, is extremely bullish on Bitcoin specifically, also when asked what asset class would he be focused on the most.
It's repriced there. And basically the call is that it? Or is there more to come? Now, I personally think we've got another leg up. And again, with my magic voodoo charting, I can see easily 100,000, probably 120. Anything more than that, I think, is a stretch. But if it does do that, the top will be completely unpredictable, and it will probably only be there for an hour. It'll go up $20,000 in an hour and come back down again, and you will never see it. So that final peak that you'll look at the chart and say, oh, it went to 100,000, will be something so transitory that only the traders will actually get to trade that. But definitely, if it breaks out from here, it will go 100,000 and maybe a bit more. I mean, I think that I think it's got another leg. I don't think we've seen the end. I think the halving, which has always driven the price, is something that people find hard to trade for, because there's just this sort of drying up of supply, and that drying up of supply has a very sort of slow burn effect that suddenly at some point creates a big repricing. So I think we will see a big repricing sometime in the next 8 to 12 weeks.
So sum up, Clem, what are you most bullish on this year? The asset that you think will grow the most?
Well, I think that if Bitcoin or crypto takes a run, then that will be a big run. So in a way, it's not about guessing the direction; it's about guessing how far that direction will go if it turns. Right? So it's like, oh well, gold will go up to tomorrow $10. That's not so interesting. Gold will go up over the next 6 months 310%. That's more interesting. So, and Bitcoin is a long way to run if it breaks out. So that's quite interesting. So I'm positioned for that.
This is the best part. So this is so hilarious. The people who are in charge, these economists, right? These people who are supposed to understand what is going on, it seems like we, the people, have a better understanding of how terrible the system is over them. Just take this video clip. You gotta laugh when you see this. So this is Jared Bernstein, the chair of the Council of Economics Advisory of President Joe Biden. And he can't even explain how it works.
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds. Right, because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah, so a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to, yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
And just to put it, I can't even really be serious with that clip. And just to put it into perspective, like Tom Crown had pointed out, right? If you look at the amount of Bitcoins available, roughly 19.6 million, right? Keep in mind, a lot of those are lost forever, right? Because people threw their hard drives out. And Satoshi also has a very large bag, which is probably never going to move because, well, a lot of people assume Satoshi may be deceased at this point, who knows. But anyway, you got over 8 billion people on planet Earth. Now, if you divide that into the world population, you're talking about 0.002448888 per person on the planet. So just check out these numbers. So given that Bitcoin is currently around 63 to 64K, there's only enough Bitcoin for every person to have about $155 worth. So if Bitcoins were distributed using the current global distribution of wealth, 99.9% of people would have about $30 worth of Bitcoin, and people in the top 0.001% would have about 0.73 Bitcoin each. So do you understand that if you believe in hyper Bitcoinization and you believe, or not even, you don't have to believe, if you just understand the way supply and demand works, and also the fact that we have a failing fiat system, I think we can all agree on it. I mean, they literally can't even explain how it works, and they're supposed to be the guys in charge. You know, if you can just get to 1 Bitcoin and you understand these numbers, you know, these numbers that people are calling for $1 million Bitcoin, $5 million Bitcoin, it sounds crazy, but it's actually not as crazy as it sounds. I mean, I got to play this one more clip. I know I'm dragging on this, but this ECB banker cannot even explain how money is created. By the way, he thought the camera was off.
How you create money is very simple. We create money electronically, if I can say. We credit accounts of, well, that people will not understand again. It's an image, you know, so, I mean, this is off now. I could say I print banknotes, but it's an image, you know, it's not the way we do because it goes via the banking system.
But couldn't you
Yeah,
say,
how would you say
I
that?
mean,
Because
we lend
nah,
money.
but lend. No, it's not. Well, no, we create money. It's
Yes,
not
yes,
lending
no,
money.
but
We
give me a
create
second,
money.
Give me a second. We lend to commercial banks,
That's not
and
true, no, not true.
the moment of this lending creates the money. Because
No,
we
no, but
credit-
no. I see what you mean.
Doesn't work.
But it's not even true what you say. When you've let me give the we are not. That's the classical way. Nobody's going to understand what you say. But normally it's. I would just think about the situation. I print banknotes. In my office, I print banknotes. And with these banknotes, I will buy you something. And I give you this banknote, and you give me a bond that you have bought before. You have a Schatz, you know, you have a treasury bill, you know, in your investment, and then you sell it to me, and I give you cash, which I have produced. But we do that electronically.
So where do you really want to put your money? Obviously, you know, there's real estate. Sure, that's a go-to. You know, I own real estate. I do believe that, you know, they're not going to make any more land, and it's definitely going to be a lot harder for, you know, people to buy houses. So, you know, I do believe in a rental market, right? So that is something that I am focused on. But really outside of that, Bitcoin is the next best thing, or actually, I should probably reverse that and say Bitcoin is the best thing. But A, it doesn't have as much track record, right? It's only got about 15 years under it. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin. I wanted to show you what's going on right now and how this is something that, you know, Bitcoin's really only done twice this cycle, and it keeps getting more aggressive each time it does it. Now, if you just want to kind of look at, you know, people trying to call these cycle tops, well, every single time Bitcoin kind of hits, with the exception of back here, you know, these are really early days, 2012, 2013, you know, once you get around the realized cap over the tradable supply, you can see this red line right here, that's usually where we start to get a little bit overheated. You know, you can see right here, you know, it's not a perfect top, but usually around this area is where, you know, you're starting to get concerned. We're obviously not even close to touching it yet, right? Now, if we just have a simple look, very easy to draw these lines, right? We had this parallel channel, Bitcoin bounced off it, and currently we're not out of the woods just yet, because even if I just draw this line right here, you know, kind of where we're at, I mean, you know, give or take, or maybe I should just draw a box. Maybe a box would be better. That way it's like kind of, you know, a range. You know, you kind of go from where we are right now to sort of around, so we have between the 64,000 to about 65,000 region. This is possibly going to act as that resistance, right? Now, I guess if you wanted to just take a short-term trend from the top here, you know, pull that down, connect those 3 points, then I guess if you zoom in here, you could maybe say that we've actually acted as support and we're starting to bounce off of that, but we're still stuck in this upwards trend. So I would say that, you know, this is good, but again, at the same time, you know, this is still a downwards trend. Although you can argue we have broken out of it, right? And I am optimistic on, for example, this candle that we just had right here. This is showing us that there was a lot of buying to the upside. This is a massive wick. It's actually technically called a tail because it's on the bottom, but I just call them wicks. Get over it, okay? So this massive wick on the bottom here is showing that we had extreme buying pressure. Now, where have we had something on this level of aggression? Well, if we have a look again at our Fibonacci extensions, we had been stuck between the 0, which was obviously the number 1, and then also the 0.786. I'm sorry, I meant to just say the 1, but I said 0. You know what I mean, the absolute. The 0 would be down here. If we flipped it, it would have been on top. But ultimately, you know, that has been acting as that resistance, which as I also showed you guys, just to repoint this out again, the reason that was acting as our resistance is because if I pull this all the way over here, that was the original top that we were supposed to have around the 4.236, and that was 73,000. Now that's where I believe we were supposed to go this cycle, but we didn't go there because we had FTX, we had Alameda, we had Terra Luna, BlockFi, Celsius, right? We had the crypto contagion, and that's what I believe accelerated this to the downside. But again, if I just kind of get rid of that, let me just get rid of that again to make it cleaner. Boom, look at this. Perfect bounce right there off of the 0.786, $57,000, right? And by the way, that puts our next target of around $101,800. But here's the kicker. What are some of the similarities that you could see here? Well, look at some of the last times that Bitcoin had this type of a candle right here. See, this type of a huge body coming up from the bottom like that? Well, last time that we had it was actually right here on the week of January 22nd. And you can see right there from bottom to top, that was a 90% move. Now, you can argue that we did kind of have one before that, although this is a red candle. But seriously, if the candles, let's say if the candles were just one solid color and you didn't know if they were red or green, that candle right there looks exactly the same as that candle right there. I mean, it's literally basically the same candle. This one happens to be red. This one happens to be green. But ultimately, it is, for the most part, the same structure with the exception of the open versus the close. But it's showing massive buying pressure. And after this one, we had Bitcoin move 62%, right? So we had a 62% here, we had a 90% here. So that was a 30% increase. So let's just say we were to have a 30% increase if we're just following that again. Well, where would that put Bitcoin from here? That would be about 120%, and that would put Bitcoin right around 126,000, which would put us between our first target, our base target, and our main target of 155,000. So again, is that possibility that we could still go down, retest this major, upwards trend like this? Yeah, it's possible. But as we keep getting bought up, the whole idea of the, I don't have the parabolic curve on, but that parabolic, that was really sloppy. This parabolic curve, like that, this is what happens, and you're accelerating. So, if this move down here, this move got us, a 60%, right? And then this move right here got us a 90%. Then if we are having that exponential move to the upside, then it is possible that this move gives us the 120%. And that's how we can get to some of these levels between $102,000 to $150,000 Bitcoin. So again, it's difficult to make these videos every day because in the short term, yeah, there's a little bit of turbulence, but in the longer term structure, we have constructive parabolic, price movement for Bitcoin. And, while everyone's losing interest or they're throwing their money into shitcoins or they're walking away or, they're literally scared about this right here, which by the way, again, lined up perfectly with this area, then I don't really know what to say because having a look right here, even the pi cycle indicator top has showed us that in, previous history, it has acted as the resistance on the way up. Right? So you have it down here. You have it acting as the support as you're building the base. You have it acting as the resistance right here. Okay, so once we break that resistance and break that previous all-time high, that's when you really get those crazy moves. The only thing that we've done here is just have a second retest. This is exactly the healthy price action that we were expecting for Bitcoin. And that's kind of what I've been saying for the past few weeks, but it's kind of boring when you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. I get it, but I can't just change analysis, because, it's fun to be different. We were looking for a short-term pullback. We got that. And, as long as we can maintain these levels, we're looking at constructive price action to the upside while we also have, and by the way, guys, some of these levels have been here, this has been here since May of 2022 on the DXY, and you can see right here that, the DXY has been in this descending channel. Now, you could say it's kind of putting in a megaphone channel, although I don't really agree with that specifically. Look at this. We had the rejection, and we had the support right here. But ultimately, I think what you'll see is consolidation and continue of breakdown from the dollar for the exact reasons that we pointed out previously, which is simply because they are going to keep printing money, and that is just how it works. And the more money they print, the more it devalues your savings, the more it creates inflation inherently, which is the hidden tax. And of course, as we saw in the beginning, even if you held, or if you had bought Bitcoin at the all-time high and then sold at the next low, within 5 years, you would still have at least a 3x return. You would outpace literally every other possible investment that there is. And you might have seen this the great Bitcoin debate that was over by Zero Hedge. They had Nouriel Roubini, Peter Schiff, Scaramucci, and Voorhees were over there as well. But I love the way that he ended it, because you could just tell. And this is kind of how I feel, guys. I feel like I'm getting tired. I've been talking about Bitcoin for 8 years now, and it is getting tiresome. It really is. I mean, what else is there to say? How much more evidence do you need? And I think you could just sense the almost like, we're just tired. We're not going to have this conversation anymore. Here's a good idea. Why don't we just let the asset speak for itself?
30 seconds of his time to you. Okay. And we want to hear it, sir.
Okay. First of all, a world in which gold was the money again would be a superior world to the status quo. I'll grant that. My primary concern is that the world has money that is derived out of market processes rather than out of coercive centralization of the state. The latter is extremely an un-American and dangerous plague that has existed now since at least 1971, when the dollar became a fiat currency. Anything that moves the world away from centralized control of money to market-based control of money is something that I would be in favor of. Peter, I will praise you if you can get the world to accept gold again as a form of normal money. That would be great. There are some other of us who don't wish to wait around for that, and we actually think a decentralized form of money that you can send in a digital world has value. And back in 2011, 2012, 2013, when we had our first debate, I understand that the burden of proof was on us. We had to argue that it was a currency or that it was a money. We had to make those statements because there's no reason for anyone to believe us back then. But it's 2024, and this is a $1.2 trillion asset, one of the most liquid assets in the world, one of the top 10 assets in the entire world by market cap. I don't need to keep making the case that Bitcoin is something. The world believes it's something. You can see why if you ever go try to send a transaction internationally with a bank and you do it with Bitcoin on your phone, anyone who's done those two things will see the value immediately. And I don't have to defend it much, right? It's just growing and it's an option. There's no Bitcoiner that would force either of you to ever use it. And if you want to stay in the traditional financial system, go down with the Titanic, go for it. Many of us are choosing an alternative.
I'm on the Voorhees life raft, just so you know.
Well, I'm not going down with the ship either.
So I don't know if you guys can kind of relate with that. That's almost like when you see the videos of Sailor and he's always just like, he's just totally out of breath explaining it. And it is tiresome, but I feel like I have to keep making these videos because there's always going to be those people that, think it's the end or think it's a flash in the pan or think it's just a bubble. Guys, they've been calling Bitcoin a bubble for almost a decade, and yet it continues to surprise over and over again. And just referring back to this power law model, you could see that Bitcoin has always maintained in this curve. Now, yes, maybe you could say diminishing returns could be, this is logarithmic, but ultimately we are not even close. We're just at the level, and no cycle has ever ended, ever, by touching just the level. And all these cycles have massive accumulation ranges underneath it, and then once they break out, they tend to run. The only real exception, again, is the exception that we always use, and that was the COVID crisis, but that was a black swan. So, we could get a black swan this year. Something could happen right before the elections. Who knows? And then, of course, maybe the charts change. But if everything was to just stay the same and nothing changed, then this would tell us that we have a lot more to go for Bitcoin. So ultimately, that's it, guys. Do friendly reminder if you do want to check out MetaSignals. How many NFTs? So we have about 26. No, we have 26 left until price increases. And remember that if you get those NFTs, that gets you lifetime access. So it's going to be $5,500 access for the year. If you get the NFT today, you literally have access to all features forever, including the eventual automated trading. We're going to have an automatic trading system. So yeah, I mean, you would literally be grandfathered into that. So I would definitely check that out if you guys are interested. But that is it for the end of me. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. Let me know, what have you been doing? Buying meme coins, selling Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, not doing anything. At the end of the day, guys, I really think that you know, the opportunity for the average person to accumulate a whole Bitcoin, that window is closing very, very quickly. And we know that Bitcoin, it can be boring, it can go sideways, but once we get towards the end of these moves, which I think maybe if anything, you know, if it accelerates quickly, maybe we're like halfway to the end possibly, it can go a lot faster and a lot higher than most people anticipate, right? Bitcoin likes to surprise people both to the downside and to the upside, but ultimately, Bitcoin continues to go up and to the right. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. If you guys are interested in trading these charts, number one, literally just follow the channel. Like, we go over all of the different analysis. And again, if you're using a tool like MetaSignals along with your own analysis, along with the totally free content that I put out on the channel, there's almost no reason that you shouldn't be successful in these markets. So wishing you guys an awesome start to your week. Depending on when you're watching it, it might be the end of the weekend, but I will be making some updates as we see fit. Make sure if you're not subscribed, you get subscribed. Follow me over on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active when I'm not making YouTube videos. And yeah, guys, basically that's it for me. So thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.